To the surprise of many, I'm back. Probably to my own surprise as well. I've managed to calm things down around here. I shut the door. I'm pretty sure both of my cats are in the room here. Probably both in the closet, hanging out. One's hiding, the other one's kind of semi-seriously hiding. I just blocked them off from each other so they can get used to the fact that they're all four in the house. That entire 30 seconds will make no sense to somebody who's just browsing through, so you'll have to look at other videos from today to understand. Tampa. Tampa is a team that currently I consider them to be a team I cheer for. I like Tampa. I like their energy. I like their youth. Is that a cat or a toy? It can sound really similar. But it's a team that I do generally cheer for. I cheered for them when they were against the Hawks in the final. And last year, I cheered for them against Pittsburgh. Although Pittsburgh did beat them, I did cheer for them. Tampa is a team that I feel is on the verge of another championship. The first being in 2004, of course. And I want to focus on that. But I want to focus on some other stuff too, because Tampa is the best example of a team that builds and tears down. This is from the 1999 NHL yearbook. I brought this over from my house today. So I've been able to, thanks to the fact that Yvonne has a system, I've been able to organize my magazines a little better than not at all. The Tampa Bay Lightning felt like a dieter trying to walk past the temptations of a sweet shop, but they didn't give in to temptation. A number of trade offers for the number one pick at the entry draft were made. They proudly called Vinny Lecavalier's name when proceedings began. Lecavalier had 115 points for Rimouski of the Quebec Major Junior League last year. That had everyone at Lightning headquarters salivating, considering they'd won just 17 games and scored just 151 goals. New Tampa Bay owner Art Williams couldn't contain his delight at landing 6'4" Lecavalier, whom some have compared to the last major junior star from the QMJHL, Pierre Turgeon. Williams called Lecavalier a future Hall of Famer and predicted the 18-year-old would be the Michael Jordan of hockey. You can't blame the brass for the getting excited, not after the kind of season Tampa Bay suffered through in 97-98. There was franchise day oneer Brian Bradley out nearly all year with a wrist injury, goaltender Darren Pupa hurt again, the Lightning giving up the most goals in the Eastern Conference, and original coach Terry Crisp being replaced by Jacques Demers in November. A dizzying series of deals to try to prevent a third straight playoff shutout this season saw a slew of players split the time with the Lightning and other teams in the league last season. Only 6 members of the club's opening night roster, Rob Zamner, Carl Dykhouse, Paul Eisbart, Michael Renberg, Michael Anderson, and Corey Cross were in uniform game 82. The picture brightened considerably after the season ended with a change of ownership and word that center John Cullen was winning his battle with cancer. Then came a series of small deals followed by Lecavalier's arrival. The plan in the summer was to send the rookie to live with Demers and his family for a couple weeks in hopes of acclimatizing him for a better chance at starting right away next year. In a further effort to make Lecavalier comfortable, Tampa Bay selected his line mate Brad Richards 64th overall. Good for them, huh? Earlier in the summer, the Lightning landed center Craig Janney from Phoenix just in case Lecavalier has to take his league initiation more slowly. Craig Janney was one of the most useless forwards in the history of hockey. Just useless. It is interesting, though, because it's true. They drafted Brad Richards at 64 overall, and he was a line mate of Lecavalier's. And Richards, I would say, in terms of career, was at least equal to Vinny Lecavalier. But that's right after the crash. So, I mean, you look at the jerseys, for instance. Those are, the original jerseys. I'm wearing the current jersey. And for the record, the year after they drafted Lecavalier, they only moved up by 7 points the next year. Or 3 points the next year, actually. But they scored 28 more goals. So there was reason to be optimistic. But we're going to skip ahead. We're going to skip ahead to the best team that they ever had up until now. The 2003-2004 Tampa Bay Lightning were riddled with storylines. From coach John Tortorella's feud with star Vinny Lecavalier to a key defensive acquisition. Traditional? No, but the results were ideal. The Lightning were coming off their first playoff season since 1996 and wanted to prove they were capable of more than a one-and-done scenario. We learned a lot from that season before, said Jay Feaster, Tampa's GM at the time. I felt that after the 2002-2003 season, we could still show that we were going to be the Southeast Division champs. The issue was, how much further could we go in the playoffs? It wasn't long before the Lightning found out they could go all the way. After steamrolling the New York Islanders and Montreal Canadiens in the first two rounds, the Lightning went on to conquer the Philadelphia Flyers in 7, claiming their first Eastern Conference title. On a roster chock full of offensive talent, highlighted by Marty St. Louis, in a breakout season that netted him the Art Ross and Hart trophies, it was the relatively unknown Ruslan Fedotenko who scored the Game 7 winner against the Calgary Flames that brought the Stanley Cup to the state of Florida for the first time. Despite all the star power, St. Louis, Brad Richards, Vinny Lecavalier, Dan Boyle, Nikolai Habibulin, and a wily vet and rallying point in Dave Andreychuk, due to his 22 seasons without a cup, Feaster believes it was the off-the-radar acquisition of defenseman Daryl Sador prior to the trade deadline that made the difference. Acquiring him was huge. We had to have another experienced defenseman back there if we were going to do anything in the playoffs, Feaster said. It was Sid who was the one talking to the team about how you can play your whole career and never have a shot like we have with this kind of team, and that this is the opportunity you cannot let go by. Between that and his play, if he isn't part of it, I don't know if we make that run. So there you go. Vinny Lecavalier, the hero who led the Lightning to the Cup. Then what happened? Look at that yellow writing in the corner. Yeah, the lockout season happened. So let's take a look on what they have to say about the Lightning with the season that wasn't. The Lightning scare a lot of people around the NHL. It's been a long time since the Stanley Cup champions carried as much upside. And with a style of play that can beat the trap and stifle the best offenses thrown at it, Tampa will be a force for a long time. Imagine, the team that 3 seasons ago could not make the playoffs and was coming off an NHL high 4 consecutive seasons with 50-plus losses is now one of the models of how to get it done. Tampa boasts 2 scoring lines, a defense greater than the sum of its parts, and goaltending as good as any in the league. The best part? The core is still young. Conn Smythe Trophy winner Brad Richards and Vinny Lecavalier are 24. Hart Trophy and Pearson winner Marty St. Louis is 29. Emerging force Ruslan Fedotenko is 25. The defense led by Corey Sarich, 26. Pavel Kabina, 27, and Dan Boyle, 28. Cracks are yet to form, but the stresses are there if you look hard enough. Should unrestricted free agent defenseman Jason Cullimore not be re-signed, the team loses a solid blue liner. A decision by captain Dave Andreychuk to retire would leave a leadership void. And will goalie Nikolai Habibulin, who will make $6.5 million this season, play like the near Smythe winner he was in the playoffs, or the sometimes unfocused, too frequent allower of soft goals that made him the subject of trade rumors during the season? It didn't matter because it didn't matter. And it was too bad. It was really too bad. They didn't have an opportunity to repeat because the lockout happened. That's the only magazine I have from the lockout season. And then let's take a look at this one, because this is from 08-09, the next time the team would bottom out. The Lightning finally hit bottom. It was a slow descent since its thrilling 2003-2004 Stanley Cup championship, but the Lightning finished last in the league in 2007-2008 in the season that began with a devastating wrist injury to offensive catalyst Dan Boyle, continued with the usual goaltending issues, and ended with the firing of coach John Tortorella and resignation of GM Jay Feaster. And it is that quick. You can go from being at the top to being at the bottom. It's just that quick. The Lightning was down, But the new 8-man ownership group, led by Hollywood producer Orrin Cools and former NHLer turned developer Len Barry, made sure it was not out. I'll predict right now Tampa will win the division, said Barry in mid-July. That's how much we like our team. Tampa hired Barry Melrose as coach, ending his 12-year stint on ESPN and ensuring a buzz, good and bad, as fans enjoyed his big talk but wondered whether the game had passed him by since he guided Wayne Gretzky's Kings to the '93 final. Yeah, it did. It had passed him by. Feaster, meanwhile, resigned and it became apparent that Cools and Barry had their own ideas on how to rebuild the team. It looks like the new owners and Brian Lawton, newly installed as head of hockey operations, will call the shots. Oh, Brian Lawton. The Bolts drafted Steve Stamkos #1 overall, landing the consensus best player and a well-spoken gentleman to be the future face of the franchise. By the end of the first day of free agency, Tampa had spent $72 million on contracts. 2. Vinny Prospal, Ryan Malone, Ole Kolzig, and Radim Verbata then continued spending to get Gary Roberts and Mark Recchi, among others. The Tampa Lightning, the summer after they got Steven Stamkos, decided they were going to acquire all of the free agents. And they felt they were going to immediately jump up the charts. And it was a disaster. Finally, it traded Boyle just 4 months after the team signed a 6-year, $40 million contract. The defenseman was shipped to San Jose for young and talented defenseman Matt Carle, 2 draft choices, and highly regarded defense prospect Ty Wishart, who didn't make it. And yeah, that was the second time that the team hit bottom. So what we have is a Tampa Bay Lightning team who started out as an expansion team, is relatively decent. Let's take a quick boo at that, shall we? As an expansion team, they won 23 games. They had 53 points, 245 goals for, 332 against, which was technically better than the next time they bottomed out. In 97-98, they had 44 points. That was the year they drafted LeCavalier. Then they had 47 the year after, 54, 59, 69. And then finally, in 2003, they hit 93 points, finished first in the Southeast because the Southeast was brutal, and then lost in quick fashion. They won the Cup in 2004. Then everything fell apart because the lockout happened. The first year after the lockout, they had 92 points. They finished 8th in the East, and they lost in the first round. Then they had 93 points, finished 7th in the East, and lost in the first round. And then they had 71 points. That's where Stamkos ended. Hi, kitty. See, he knows I'm doing a video. Isn't that great? New place, and Shadow comes out because he knows I'm doing a video. 71 points meant that Stamkos was a member of the Lightning. Come here. Come on, Shadow. So Stamkos was a member of the Lightning, and they actually dropped to 66 points the year after that. That's in large part due to the moronic move with coaching. I don't think Melrose lasted the season. Can't remember who replaced him. Kitty. Yeah, it was Rick Tocchet replaced him. Tocchet didn't last very long, and then of course Guy Boucher came in, and Boucher had more success than Tocchet. But Melrose's big thing was he kind of picked on Stamkos. He basically didn't believe that Stamkos was ready for the NHL, and kept making that statement clear, even though basically he was being told by management, yeah, no, play Stamkos. And as soon as Melrose was fired and Tocchet took over, Stamkos became what he is now. Not injured, but a very, 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 very popular and solid player. And the Lightning are a team that I look at and I say, all right, the tear it down, build it up crowd. Tampa is one of the few teams in the league that seems to be able to do it. And it's not on purpose. I read the names of all those players that Tampa picked up as free agents after that 71-point season, and they got Stamkos. Yeah, they lost points. They had 66 points the following year. And thankfully, they did that because then they got Hedman in the draft. See, this is how it works. Tampa picks up Stamkos. They pick up every free agent. They're like, okay, now we're going to be better. And then they're not. They're actually kind of worse. But they get Hedman in the draft. So you can look back now and go, oh, see, that was a great rebuild. Look how Tampa did that. Fantastic. Stamkos and Hedman. And then the year after, well, the year after they got Brett Connolly. But, it's still a top 10 draft pick. So, but Hedman and Hedman's their horse on the blue line, and then Stamkos is the future up front. The problem with that theory is you'd have to look at the year after they drafted Stamkos and say, oh, that was on purpose, when it wasn't. They're supposed to have 1 year on the bottom and then supposed to tear up the league after that. That's why they signed all of the free agents. And it's ridiculous looking back at how much money they gave to everybody come to Tampa. And yeah, it didn't work out well for them at all. Tampa, I think most of those guys were gone by the end of, if not the end of the first season, then not very long after that, because they signed all these guys and none of them fit in with what they were doing. None of them were rebuilders. And it's one of those things. It's why when your team on July 1st doesn't do anything, and you're like, oh, it's first day of free agency, and why didn't we sign anybody? Tampa's a good example of why not do it. And other teams have done it too, like the Rangers have done it in way back in the past, where some of you guys weren't around yet, but free agency would arrive and the Rangers would pick up as many big names as possible, and it just didn't work. You can't guarantee it's going to mesh. With where Tampa is now, and with the guy who used to be the face of this franchise, it's not a coincidence that I'm wearing my Detroit hat. With Yzerman, they are set. This is a team that I genuinely believe will be at the top for years to come. And a lot of people are picking them to win the Cup this year. Now, I'm picking Washington because probably I like to be contrarian. But at the same time, because it's consensus that Tampa's going to win the Cup, it's usually wrong. Consensus is usually wrong about who's going to win the Stanley Cup before the season starts. And there are a lot of challenges that are going to come up against them. But Tampa is one of the best run organizations in the league. I can't think of another team that I think can be as scary as Tampa in terms of the depth. There's teams that are close. Hawks would be close. San Jose's close. Pittsburgh, of course. But Tampa, just amazing. Anyways, that's my Tampa look at things. Tomorrow is, of course, yes, Leafs fans, tomorrow is your day. Tomorrow I talk about the Leafs. Tomorrow we discuss the history of the Maple Leafs. It is the centennial, of course. So I will discuss the fact that it is the centennial and that the history of the Maple Leafs, it seems to exist in two chapters, the one until 1967 and the one since 1967. And it's quite a different story than the one I'm telling here about Tampa. Tampa's a team that kind of does this in the standings. Toronto has tried to stay even and get better, and it hasn't always worked. The teardown options seem to be implemented last year, and I genuinely think it's going to have a good outcome for them. But for Tampa, for this video, solid team in a location that hasn't always supported them very well. I know they've papered seats. Papering meaning handing out free tickets at the door just so you can get your attendance figures up. But I haven't heard anything about moving. I haven't heard anything about owners stepping out due to money issues, not for a long time where Tampa's concerned. Tampa is a very, very well-run organization. They're very smart, and it's a team I genuinely cheer for in a league where it's hard from year to year sometimes to pick out teams that I would cheer for in certain series. Tampa is a team that I really enjoy watching. They play fun hockey, and in an era dominated by defense, it's fun to see a team that can win with offense. And their defense is good, but just they have so many offensive weapons. They're fun to watch. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing through. And tomorrow, it's the Leafs. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all again soon.